Tekken 8 has been out for a couple months now, and with it being my favorite franchise of any medium period, it seems pretty odd that I haven't really talked about it all that much yet. Especially when it comes to the story, the aspect of the franchise that I'm probably the most invested in because, to be honest, I'm still not too great at the game, even though I've been playing since the first one. But the reason this all took so long is because I wanted to talk about a specific topic within the story. Everyone else has already talked about pretty much everything you can talk about when it comes to the story. The incredible cinematics, the switches from cutscenes to gameplay, all the fantastic fan service and the incredible music. But one thing in the story that I've noticed will never get anything more than a mention or summary is the character of Jin Kazama and his journey to redemption, and the deeper messages that come with that. And I can't be too harsh on the reviewers. I mean, Jin did start a world war. It's kinda hard to make up for that. But not impossible. There are many characters in fiction like Sasuke Uchiha, Vegeta, Omni-Man, and more who have done equal or even way worse things than Jin has done, and have managed to come back and be fan favorites, redeeming themselves in both the eyes of the characters around them and the audience watching them. So today we're talking about Jin Kazama, discussing his crimes, going over his incredible redemption, and figuring out why so many fans of Tekken have trouble letting it go. Let's kick things off with Chapter 1. Okay, the title of that chapter is a bit odd, considering Jin is a war criminal and started WW3. I'm not denying any of that. However, there is a lot of misinformation surrounding it. For example, people label Jin as genocidal. No, that's not what genocidal means. Jin's goal was to plunge the world into darkness to awaken Azazel, the origin of the cursed devil gene within him who was whispering prophecies to Jin throughout past Tekken games. By awakening Azazel, Jin was planning to destroy Azazel along with himself to rid the world completely of the cursed devil gene. Yes, he failed, but let me repeat that. Jin was looking to destroy Azazel and himself. Dude was on a complete sewer slide mission to cleanse the world of the devil. So, as awful as many of his actions were, they weren't exactly selfish. Now let's go back to genocidal. Jin brought darkness and despair to the world by taking over nations and trying to control the entire world. He wasn't trying to wipe out a specific group of people or targeting a specific nation. He wanted the whole world, so by definition, genocidal is not it. And while not as frequent, I have seen people give Jin a kill count of 6 to 11 million. A very not so subtle way of comparing him to literally that guy. I guess because Jin started a world war, but that's still kind of a crazy comparison. But anyways, that kill count was never confirmed. Now people did die because of Jin's actions in the war he started. Miguel's sister, for example. But that was never his goal. That's just sadly what came along with it. Jin wanted to bring darkness and chaos to the world by controlling and manipulating everything. He never wanted to destroy anyone besides Kazuya and Heihachi. Speaking of which, the people who are typically the hardest on Jin, and absolutely refuse to give him a shot in redemption, are the Kazuya fans. But need I remind you guys, it takes more than one person to start a war. When Jin started World War III, Kazuya was basically like, "Ooh, yummy wummy, a world war, don't mind if I do," and tried to seize control of the world in the same way Jin was doing, only with public perception on his side, because he was opposing Jin Kazama. Then he failed, got beat up by Lars, and had to use a flashbang to get away. But back to Jin. The final point is also the scale of this war. When you think of Jin starting World War III, you imagine some kind of 5 to 8 year long reign of terror. But believe it or not, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Tekken 6, and Tekken 7 all take place within the same year. Jin's World War was only a few months long at most. He was basically just ripping off a band-aid. Get in, cause chaos, destroy the devil, get out. This whole evil Jin World War arc isn't nearly as bad as everyone says. However, even though Jin Kazama's intentions were selfless, even though he wasn't genocidal and never targeted a specific group or nation, even though he rushed and got through this war as fast as he possibly could to cause as little suffering as he could, and even though he never planned to kill anyone in this war besides Azazel and himself, he failed, and innocent people did die despite his intentions. And he did bring the whole world to chaos, leaving it in the hands of the much more evil Kazuya and Heihachi Mishima. Those are the sins of Jin Kazama. Yes, they are severe, but nowhere near as severe as everyone says, which was already nowhere near as severe as other characters like Omni-Man and Vegeta. So with that said, there's definitely room for redemption. Let's take a look. So, I actually run that no-context Tekken account that you may have seen once or twice if you're part of the Tekken community on Twitter. And before Tekken 8 released, I made a post on that account asking everyone what Jin Kazama would have to do to redeem himself in your eyes. And one of the most common answers I got was that he'd have to sacrifice himself, pretty much just die with his evil deeds. But to be honest, not only would that be lazy writing, but it wouldn't really fix anything. Remember, Jin's plan the entire time was to defeat Azazel and then sacrifice himself. And we kind of got a glimpse of what that would be like in Tekken 7. Jin was in a coma and Azazel hadn't reawakened yet. He was pretty much gone, leaving the world for Kazuya and Heihachi to continue destroying. Or in Tekken 8's case, leave it for Reina to continue destroying. Plus, overall, it just wouldn't redeem Jin in the slightest. Bringing the whole world to chaos just to defeat Azazel and then peace out for Lars and company to clean up doesn't sound like a redemption to me. So let's talk about how Tekken 8 did it. So the first thing Tekken 8's story does correctly is that it never lets you forget what Jin did. Kazuya throws it in Jin's face in one of his very first lines of the game. Leo brings it up within 0.3 seconds of eye contact with Jin. The King of Iron Fist tournament announcer mentions it when introducing Jin. And throughout the whole game, Jin himself is constantly beating himself up and reminding himself of his crimes. There's an entire chapter of the game, Chapter 12, where he confronts himself over this. Jin has already accepted that he can't move past his crimes, they're unforgivable, and he never expected forgiveness. But sulking and beating himself up over it isn't going to help anything either. Yeah, he broke the world, but he also has the power to heal it. And he can't do that if he only sees himself for what he's done. He learns to accept his whole self, his past, his sins, and even his devil form. And once he makes peace with all of that, he's finally able to move forward. And that's why I think his redemption is so good. Jin doesn't go back in time and magically undo everything. He doesn't magically fix the world in one act. He doesn't make up for what he's done. He accepts that his crimes will never fade and doesn't expect forgiveness. He decides to live on together with his sins and move forward, make the world a better place and be a better person. Tekken 8 is a powerful story about destroying self-hatred and accepting yourself. The evil Jin did in Tekken 6 stemmed from his self-hatred. The hatred of the devil gene, the hatred towards the Mishima bloodline, and the desire to destroy himself for having those things within him. Self-hatred is a very destructive trait that can lead to you harming not only yourself, but others around you too. Tekken 6 shows that, as Jin's self-hatred led to the destruction of the whole world. But in Tekken 8, he finally accepts his devil gene, he finally accepts his Mishima roots, and he chooses to live and build a better future. I think it's the best possible redemption he could have gotten. He doesn't sacrifice himself and leave it for everyone else to clean up, he doesn't undo all his mistakes. He just accepts them and moves forward, like Vegeta, and Omni-Man, and Sasuke. His redemption is honestly a very well written and executed one, and on par with those previously mentioned characters. But for some reason, a lot of Tekken players have trouble seeing that. Why is that? Let's discuss. Okay, so first I'm just gonna get the Kazuya fans out of the way. Because a pretty big fraction of the people who don't accept Jin's redemption are Kazuya fans. And they had a completely different ending in mind. Before the game came out, the most theorized ending I heard was that Kazuya should win the final battle, and before he kills Jin, Jun shows up and makes him stop. And then Kazuya magically turns good again through the power of love or whatever, because he loves Jun, and all of a sudden he realizes, oh, Jin's his son, and now he cares. You think I'm kidding, but I've heard that ending theorized more times than I can count on my fingers and toes. An ending where Kazuya gets no repercussions for his actions, doesn't do any hard work to change, and just magically gets everything he wants besides the evil world domination, with a wave of Jun's hand and the power of love. And then they have the audacity to say Jin's power of friendship ending was hokey. The point is, don't trust redemption arc opinions from Kazuya glazers. But now to the real critiques. One is that people feel that Jin was forgiven a bit too easily by the rest of the characters in the story. But if you pay attention closely, a lot of characters didn't really forgive Jin at all, like Hwoarang for example. After experiencing the rough end of Jin's powers in Tekken 5, Hwoarang still views him as a freak instead of a true rival, even refusing to cheer for Jin when Jin is the only one who can oppose Kazuya. And the characters who did forgive Jin had ulterior motives, Leroy, for example, had a personal vendetta towards the Mishima family, and was just thankful that Jin was standing up to them. Then characters like Elisa, Lee, Claudio, Zafina, and Lars were all in support of Jin because he was the only one who could take down Kazuya. And they actually make that fact pretty clear. Lars even calls Jin his trump card at one point. And if you remember, back in Tekken 7, Lars even says he wants to kill Jin, but can't because he's the key to ending this war. And yes, there are characters like Leo who seem to be taking things a bit lighter than they should, and there are characters like Xiaoyu who probably think Jin did nothing wrong, but most of the characters in the story didn't just forgive and forget like everyone thinks. And the final critique is that Miguel isn't in the base game for Tekken 8, a character who would likely be the biggest obstacle for Jin's redemption arc. And yeah, it's a pretty fair critique. Miguel is the hardest question Jin would have to answer to. But I do think there was a big reason he was left out besides avoiding the hard question. Go back and watch Miguel's Tekken 7 ending again. The way Miguel wants to wait until Jin is filled with hope before crushing him like he's nothing, just like the Mishima Zaibatsu crushed Miguel's sister like she was nothing. Well, Jin wasn't filled with hope yet in Tekken 8. Tekken 8 was all about getting Jin to that point. And now that Jin's finally there, and with the confirmation of story DLC, we should hopefully be getting a confrontation with Miguel soon. But overall, I think Jin had an incredible redemption arc in Tekken 8. A couple characters in the game may not have been as harsh as they should have been, and there are still a couple questions we're waiting on answers for, but if the answers are as well done as Jin's redemption arc, then we're in good hands. But let me know what you guys think. Was Jin's character development done well? Or do you still think Kazuya should have won? And if you do, why? Leave your answers in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Leopold the Brave, out.